Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the candidate live stream for the New Jersey Libertarian Party. My name is Lana Leguía. I'm going to be hosting, but I'm also running for District 24 State Assembly, of course, in New Jersey. And then we also have Vic Kaplan, who's running for governor. Bruno and Dustin can't make it tonight. Hopefully they can make it tomorrow. We're going to try to go live tomorrow as well, but we at least go live every Thursday at 6:30. If you have questions for us, you can put it in the chat or you can email me or message me. Even if you're watching this after we've already gone live, you can still put it in there and we'll answer the next time we go live. So how are you doing, Vic? I know you had a town hall yesterday.
Yes, I have. Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing fine. Thank you. It was a pleasure having the town hall. I think there were interesting topics being brought up. There were some points, I think, of agreement. I did get some positive responses, but there were not all of them were positive. But that is to be expected, given the the number of people that were present and their political background, affiliation rather. That I guess that's not too surprising.
Yeah, so I was there, and this was I forget the exact town. I think it was Morristown, but it was in Burlington County, and it was hosted by the NAACP. I never say that right. So, there was a lot of conversation about equity and inclusion and DEI and all these things, which are great things to talk about. But of course, as libertarians, we don't really support the government enforcing these things in every way that people want them to. So you were the only non-Democrat or progressive in the room. So kudos to you for the bravery of standing up and sticking to the libertarian position in a room full of people who would definitely not agree with you, and they didn't, and that's fine. I did upload a video that I took of you talking about school choice, if you guys want to go watch that. But how did it feel kind of being the only one in the room with opinions such as those where you have, I don't know how many people were there, but as far as the candidates, there were between 10 and 15 people, maybe, I don't know, that or candidates that clearly wanted to spend more money to try and make communities and society more inclusive and equitable. And here you are advocating for the opposite, basically.
Well, it felt, I guess it felt, I mean, I wasn't surprised. I would say that that's kind of what I expected on a number of those topics. I don't mind people spending more money on those things, but I'd rather they spend their own money,
right?
Not the taxpayers' money. And there are plenty of people that already do that are not spending tax dollars; they're spending their own money. So it's really a question of who can. It's not just a philosophical question, but also who can better provide the results. And of course, what we've seen is that with all that money is being spent, all the taxpayers' money being spent, I mean, what are the results, right? I mean, we have quite a lot of schools that are public schools that are can't exactly be described as successful. That's when it comes to education. And if all of these programs were so wonderful and were so great as the people claim that support them, then we certainly would have seen the results. That's not kind of leaving aside the moral point. That certainly, I'm running for governor, and I have no idea what is best for millions and millions of people, but there are people in the room that clearly think that they know what is best for them. So it did feel kind of weird because when we can certainly talk about that topic, but when the subject of housing came up, the issue was, I want people to have access to affordable housing without raising any taxes. I mean, I don't want to have any kind of state mandates, because they were talking about subsidies, how the taxpayers should be subsidizing this and subsidizing that. There are all these programs that they claim are so wonderful, that are in line with the Mount Laurel decision. They all come at taxpayers' expense. I mean, none of them are just letting people have access to affordable housing, like let people buy the housing they can afford. Now that wasn't even an option. So when I came out and I talked about my plan and how we can reduce homelessness, I just didn't get any kind of responses from the people in the room, because of course none of them support what I support, which is giving the freedom to people to choose the type of housing they want to live in instead of restricting it on a local level. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised at that. I didn't expect any of them to support what I support. But to me, this really is a no-brainer, and this is something that, to me, would cut across ideological lines. I mean, if I talk to a regular person and that person can't regard. I mean, let's say that person is a Democrat, and that then I hear, well, let's just change the zoning laws to allow you to live in a house you can afford. I'm sure they'll support it. And I would tell that person that this is not going to require any increases in taxes. Just So, I mean, to me, this is a no-brainer. And yet, of course, in that audience, I didn't expect people to agree with me on that, because, of course, they do believe in the mandates coming from the state government, top-down approach, instead of letting the people make their own decisions regarding their lives in terms of what is best for them.
Yeah, and ultimately it comes down to that, is that, whether you're on the left, you're a progressive Democrat, whatever, or you're on the right, you're a conservative Republican, whatever it may be, what it comes down to is, do you think that the state should decide what your future is for you or your children or your children's children? Do you think that the state should be able to steal resources from you and give them to somebody who needs them more, who's deemed to need it more? That's ultimately what all these positions come down to. When we were talking, well, not we, but when you guys were talking about schools and what the issue is, they kept wanting to add more programs and throw more money at it. And, especially in New Jersey, we do have the highest property tax in the country, and about 50% of that goes to, local schools. And on a state level, I don't remember the exact amount, but it's something around 30% of income taxes go to schools. And then we also get federal funding for our schools. And somehow things aren't getting better. We still have children that don't read at, proficiency levels. We have children that can't read at all. The same areas that need help in education, like Newark and Trenton and West Orange and these places, that inspired the income tax to be created in 1976, are still where they were 50 years ago. Like, nothing's getting better, and we keep throwing more money at it, thinking it's going to fix it. We also have one of the highest per pupil cost in the country, and it's not doing anything. It's not actually making things better. So, well, you can go into what you were trying to explain, and unfortunately, you got a little bit, not you, but some of the people there got a bit aggressive with you, disagreeing with you. But if you want to explain your position on that.
Sure. Yeah, there was the one lady that was on the school board. She had an issue with me just when I talked about parents being allowed to send their children to municipalities across to schools across the municipal lines, to public schools, and she did not like that idea one bit. She mentioned buses, and then straight away, and I think I certainly could have. It's like I said, well, I just want parents to make those decisions. Of course, with buses, there are other options, right? I mean, there's carpooling. There is, I remember when I went to school, I had my dad agreed that my neighbor would pick me up. I mean, the driving to school, it picked me up from school. And, so like kind of arranged that. Then, like I said, carpooling, it could be another option. I mean, there are many different ways to deal with transportation. And also, the lady may not be aware of, and because she skipped straight over to another subject about apparently she's on a school board. She said that you can't send your children as a parent to school districts throughout the state, and that is just false. I mean, I can't believe she's on a school board, but then she said she did know that, but she said, yeah, I'm pretty sure that you can do that. No, you can't. but
Yeah.
She did think that, so there are different ways to approach it. And I just want to also mention that when it comes to schools, there are kids that take public transportation to public schools. Like, they're not all being brought in by school buses. I guess you may not have known that, but so there, like I said, there are different arrangements. And yes, there are actually school buses that would travel. Like, I know that special ed schools, they would have kids, of course, bused from other municipalities. So this is not, they do arrange that. Like, this is not unheard of. There's one school in specifically in New Jersey, and all of the students, they come from New York City. So it's like, it's not, again, it's a special ed school. Like, it's not unheard of. Like, it's like, yeah, because she said, well, but the school buses, like, that's going to cost money. Like, that people already do that, and there are other ways of getting to a school, like public transportation, and, like I said, carpooling. Like, there's so many different ways of doing that. But she seemed to have kind of like, well, how this is going to happen, as though this has never been done before and it's not being done today. But I think the other issue she had was, she said that, after that, she said in that video that, well, all children deserve to have the best education, and everyone has, right. But, like, that's clearly an equal education, and have, access to, plenty of funding and all that. And she brought up an example, if somebody is in Princeton and they're getting tutored, and yeah, and actually, when I think about that, yeah, there are also kids in New York and also who get tutored. It's not, there are teachers who actually do that kind of stuff, like after school. Like, it's not, limited to one particular area or city or town. So I don't know what she was referring to, but but her point, well taken. Of course, yes, if you're getting tutored, then that is true. But I think what she was trying to say was that, well, all schools, deserve to have plenty of money spent on them. But we already have that, right? We already have, like, places in New Jersey, school districts, they get plenty of funds, right, coming from the state government. As you mentioned, Lana, the state government is spending money per pupil, and we have a disproportionate amount of money being spent on specific certain school districts coming from the state aid, and right, and being paid for by property taxes. So if all that money, if all that spending, produced the greatest results ever, well, clearly we're not seeing that, right? As you mentioned, there's some students that have difficulty with language proficiency. So if all of this is so wonderful and so great, how come you have all these results, right, that are below par? So, but I think she didn't want to have the parents have that choice, and I think that that is just because I said, look, let's just let the parents send their kids across municipal lines. And she did not want that. Her argument was that it would, it would cost money. Well, yeah, of course it would cost money. It's not going to be free. But, like, I already addressed this topic. But the other thing is that I said what this will lead to is, of course, it would lead to less de facto segregation, which, I thought that the audience said they might have liked that part, right? Like, I don't know. But, like, diversity is a pretty strange topic, because some people think that it's good, like, that, if you have certain school district that it's majority or mostly of one background, ethnic or racial background, that it should stay that way, and bringing any other students will upset somehow the that ethnic background's dominance. Like, I really don't understand that, but whatever. Because how can you argue that the Brown versus Board of Education was great, and I'm sure all of those people in that room would agree that it was great, but then somehow have an issue with that part. But let's say they did agree with the diversity part. The issue that they had was that the parents having that opportunity to choose schools that they thought were best for their kids. It all comes down to this idea that, I believe what is best for 8 million people, and I don't know what is best for 8 million people. Right? That is the whole point. That's one of the reasons why I'm running for governor, because I want people to make those decisions, because I know that I'm not God. I can't make decisions for 8 million people, because I don't know what's best for, forget about 8 million people, 9 million people, actually, 9 million people. I don't know what's best for 20 people. I don't know what's best for my neighbor, right? So how can anyone know what's best for, all these parents throughout the state? I think it's ridiculous. And what I said this would do is that schools would have to come up with innovative ways to improve their education. This would lead to better results. That is my point. This would lead to better results. When local school districts are relying on state aid, right? They would, when it comes to education, they would want to get that money, the state aid and the federal aid, So whatever it takes, right, to boost up the scores and everything they would need to do so they would get that money. So the interest is no longer, right, the focus is no longer on education. The focus is now more on getting that federal aid and state aid, right, getting those access to those tax dollars coming from the federal government and the state government. So what I'm simply proposing is this, right? Let the school districts compete, right, for the best school district. So then the focus could be placed on education, right, on improving education, and not trying to get, you know, more of the tax dollars and more access to the tax dollars. So, and I think this would really improve education, because now the schools would have to compete for students, and they would have to provide better education. Look, we have, and I brought up the charter schools, right? And we have issue how they're being funded, but you know, of course, on the other hand, if you have public schools that are being funded by tax dollars, how can one make an argument that, well, that is okay, that's fine, but you can't have charter schools, which the only difference is that they have their own, those schools have their own curriculums, right? Curriculi, sorry. But the idea is that, well, they're taking money of the public schools. You can make that argument too, like if you're building another public school, well, that public school is going to be taking money from the other public schools. Of course, not taking the money out of those schools, but when I mentioned that some of these schools, right, they produce great results that were recharted by the state government, and some of them have failed because they were not up to par. It's like, you know, she couldn't. The idea that you could have well-performing schools, and that somehow that's a bad thing because they're taking money from tax dollars. That was the only argument that she could make. Now that they're good performing schools and parents want to send their kids to schools, and they send those kids to schools, and the parents are happy. That's the good thing, right? I mean, why shouldn't parents be in charge of the education of their kids? This is the one thing I don't understand. It's really fascinating. Like, you would think that, you know, that an individual like any person would think that, well, I would think that parents would know what schools are best for their kids. Instead, no, she doesn't want, like, that person doesn't want the parents to make those decisions. And I think that's a real issue, that you have people who think that they know what is best for millions and millions of people, and they don't. I want to give the power back to the parents, returning to the parents, so the parents will be making those decisions, not local officials trying to restrict the ability of parents making educational choices for their kids.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I do think that she was maybe not very experienced. I know she said she was on a school board, but if you don't even know that your kids can't attend school in other municipalities, I mean, and some of the other questions that she asked throughout the night, I could tell she just wasn't very knowledgeable in general. But that aside, I guess her position is, and I don't agree with this position, is that, if we allow kids to cross municipal lines because a school is underperforming, and so parents send their kids to other schools, that those schools will get more funding than the school that they left. And she believes that every kid needs to have high quality education across the board. Everyone needs to get the same thing. Because again, this is a conversation about equity, right? But what she doesn't realize is that's not how anything works. You have to like you said, you touched on this. You have to incentivize schools to actually produce results. Those results being in kids that are actually proficient in what you're teaching, not just passing tests, not just attending school, not just kind of existing in a school environment, but actually producing results for these kids they're actually being educated. They can read, they can write, they can speak well. And so when the way you incentivize schools to do that is by, hey, my kid is underperforming at this school because of XYZ. I'm going to send him to another school. And that if enough people do that, that will send an alarm to that school that, like, okay, we need to fix this, like you said, and come up with creative and innovative ideas. But from her perspective, her solution is everyone gets the same amount of money across the board. Everyone has the same curriculum, and that will result in equitable outcomes. And we've tried that already. We're doing it now, and it's not working. And on top of that, and we haven't mentioned this yet, and you weren't able to last night because you kept getting interrupted. What about homeschoolers, right? People who homeschool don't get financial aid from anywhere. yet they're still paying for other people's children's education. So if you truly wanted things to be equitable while still maintaining choice, wouldn't her position be that whatever's best for your child, you should get funding from the government equally, including homeschooling, including people going to charter schools, including people going to private schools? Of course, I don't support that either, but I'm just trying to understand her logic behind her perspective, and it isn't logical. And that's why the state really just shouldn't be involved in schooling at all, and you should be in charge of your own child's education, you know?
Right. No, I agree with that. And I think that the in the recent decades, more and more parents have made that choice. I honestly think that, to me, I don't think that, teachers, well, I'm sure, I mean, they're great teachers, of course, but the idea of replacing a parent is completely, I think, ludicrous. I think the parents should be able to send the kids to schools that reflect their values. Absolutely. And 100% agree with you, Lou, that I know what's best for me and you know what's best for you. Absolutely. 100%. I don't know what is best for another person's child. How could I? We do have, and that's the thing. We have, we certainly have parochial schools, right, in the state of New Jersey, and parents send their kids to those schools so that those schools can reflect their values. And I think that's the way it should be. There should be many different schools but there should be different options for people that would reflect parents' values. Life is about choices, and this is some people just they may believe in choice when it comes to going to the store and having not being restricted from buying different types of produce, but when it comes to education, it seems like there are people who don't want people to have choices, and I don't understand that. Why can't and then they kind of make mockery of the people who believe in that, sort of like, well, you can't treat education like this, and like, yes, you can. It's like, of course, it's like, this is not, no, that's the way it should be. I look, even with charter schools, the reality is that the schools that are underperforming, I mean, they get shut down they don't get rechartered by the state government, and they have to perform, like they have to show success. And if they don't, they get shut down. To me, that this is not, there's nothing evil about it. The school gets closed. It's not, it's not the, the way some people might see it. It's like, I don't know, it's the end of the world. No, it's not the end of the world. Then the kids get sent to another school and they go to another school and that's it. Like, it's not, I don't understand this animosity towards the idea of a school that's really, really failing. That school would be shut down. It's, I mean, people can say the same thing about like somebody who's, closing down business. But the job, the responsibility of the state is not to prop up, failed businesses, right? That's not the responsibility of the state. And we've seen what happens when the federal government assumes their responsibility, and we saw it in 2008, right? When all those companies were bailed out, knowing full well they were going into this game that if anything happens, they would be bailed out. So they took all the risks with them. And then what happened? Well, lots of people lost their money. Lots of people suffered. We ended up having a great recession. The rest is history. A lot of people got hurt. I mean, this is what happens when, the state plays the role of a kind of a, sort of a referee. And if you go to a casino and no matter how many times you play, you end up a winner. Well, that's what happened in 2008, and a lot of people got hurt. So,
and then the last thing they talked about, and just so people can understand kind of the format of this forum, it wasn't, the candidates are up on stage with a microphone and people ask questions, which is what a normal forum is, which, by the way, if anyone watching has a question, just put it in the chat and we'll answer it. This was more like a round table, which was I feel was an inappropriate format, given that what the goal was to hear from different candidates and different perspectives and different solutions, and it didn't really allow for that. But they started talking about affordable housing, and how the government, of course, should spend money building affordable housing. And, of course, your perspective and my perspective, we talk about this all the time because I'm actually a victim of this, is that less regulation on what you can build and who can live where, and zoning regulations. In fact, that I forget her name, that one of the candidates, the incumbent candidates from District 7, I believe she was from, actually mentioned that when it comes to affordable housing, a lot that gets in the way of it is mixed zoning regulation, right? So, they can be approved for affordable housing, but if they can't find an appropriate property with the right zoning, they can't build it. And it's like, okay, you're almost there. You almost understand that what the problem is, and it's zoning regulations, right? But that's not their solution. Is the government needs to spend money building these affordable housing units and then give them away for free or cheap or whatever, and that will fix everything.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Lana. And all of this involves tax dollars. You're talking about subsidies. I mean, come on, like it's like why can't we have affordable housing that doesn't include like raising taxes? Come on, and the high effects of property taxes. Yeah, absolutely, Lou. And the crazy part is that they were complaining about it. Well, why don't we have private property taxes? Hello, I mean, it really like boggles your mind. I honestly think that this is it's like they're pointing out all these problems without, of course, mentioning that who is responsible for this, right? It's like, come on. It's like the state legislature and the governor, like all these, but it's like they're I don't know if they actually realize this or understand it. I doubt it. But why do we have the highest property taxes in the country, right? Like, come on. And they seem to say, well, we just have to spend more money on education. The state government has to spend more money on education, and then of course they wonder why the property taxes are high. I mean, this is really. I mean, I don't even know what to say. But they I honestly think this is, and I've seen it when it comes to the federal government and the state government, Lana, is that I do think that these people do know what they're doing. Like, I have no doubt that. But the reality, of course, is that they also end up profiting from the system, right? They end up gaining, from the system. So that's why they do not want to change it. Because, of course, if they try to, change the system, that where we could have lower property taxes, then they certainly, wouldn't be getting donations from certain groups that they're relying on, right? So it's kind of like one of those examples where one hand washes the other. Of course, this is called campaign contributions, and other people call it something else. Starts with letter B, right? So, but the reality is that they do definitely profit from the system, and they definitely benefit from the system.
Yes, and had the forum roundtable, whatever it was, continued on for another 15-20 minutes, I was very, very close to standing up and asking, okay, so we want to spend more money on education, and we want to build affordable housing, and we want to create, I say we, meaning the people in the room, not necessarily me, you and I, and we want to create all these programs, after school programs, and business. They were talking about business school, business classes for students, so they learn how to open business, all these innovative, ideas. And I was so tempted to ask, who's paying for all of this? Where's this money coming from? And of course it comes from taxes. And then they'll sit there and complain, or say that people are complaining that taxes are too high and that property taxes are too high, knowing that high property taxes is one of the reasons why people lose their homes, right? You don't pay your taxes, you don't own your house anymore, and now you're homeless, and now you have to give your house to the government, and it gets, like all these things that create people that are homeless or struggling or need help from the government, and then their solution is to create more of the same thing that's creating the problems, which is high taxes and more regulation and more control. But that's what's creating the problem in the first place. But this is no surprise to any libertarians listening, because we know that the state creates problems so that they can give you the solution, right?
Yeah, like Harry Brown said that was it in '96 that the government knows how to cripple you, break your legs and give you crutches, and they say see, if it wasn't for the government, you wouldn't be able to walk. And that's a perfect summation of what's going on. And this is exactly what's going on here, right? So then people can't afford the taxes. and then they say, well, it will just we'll give you the property tax freeze, right? Or we'll send some of that money back to you, right? After we collected the taxes from you, we'll send a little bit back to you, see, which to show how nice we are, so you can vote for us. Well, why were you taxing all these people in the first place? Should not have taken their money in taxes, only so you could give them some of that money back and say, see how wonderful we are, how good of people we are, so you should vote for us. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yes, and I think I bring this up like every live stream, but because it just makes me so mad. So I can't afford health insurance, so I get penalized on my taxes for not having health insurance, and I get that money that I pay for the penalty goes to paying for other people's health insurance. And every time I say this to somebody who are not libertarians, they'll say, well, why don't you get on state health insurance, state health care? I'm just like, because that I would be contributing to the system that has created my inability to afford healthcare or health insurance, right? So I can't afford health insurance, so I'll get on state assistance, which is being paid by people who can't afford health insurance, right? Like, the cycle is infuriating, and no one sees it that way. One of the live streams we did when we did a dual TikTok live, we had a guest who wanted to debate me on, I don't even remember, something about schools, and his undertone of all his rebuttals to me was, so you don't think kids should have education? What about people who can't afford education? What about kids who are living in poverty? You don't care about them? And that's such a trope that people have with libertarians, is that we don't care about these people. We don't care about homeless people or people who can't afford food, or children who are in broken homes, or living in poverty and would not otherwise be able to get an education if it wasn't for public education. And the thing is that I personally do care, and I do think that there's a moral obligation as a human society and a community to help these people that don't have those privileges. But I don't think they should be coming from the state, and I don't think the state should be forcing people to contribute to this assistance to other people. There are so many organizations and charities and churches and individuals throughout history, and even now, that do this stuff for free. When it comes to the handicapped population or the elder population, those are two populations that still get ignored, either by the community, their communities, or by the government. And there are people who help them. There are charities that help them. Those avenues exist now, and they will continue to exist even though the state wasn't providing everyone everything, And so it's not that we're heartless. And I don't want children to be educated and learn how to read. I think there are other avenues to allow that to happen and to have better results, actually.
100%. No, Lana, I agree. Yeah, and Lou has a comment, tax incentives. Well, I think that what if the government created tax incentives for businesses, organizations, or individuals to provide any required program set up for raising taxes? Well, I think if the state government got out of the way and wasn't taxing people so much, then absolutely all those organizations would have more money available, and all those they could fund a lot more of the things they're funding right now. But if they're being taxed to a point where more and more people are leaving the state because they can't afford it, then that's that actually reminds me of the line from the Christmas Carol, right, about Scrooge, right? Because isn't the government already collecting taxes when he was being asked to give money to the needy, right? I mean, but it is true, but then people assume that things are wonderful because the government is right. So people assume the government is already collecting taxes for those programs. But what are the results? The incentive. Well, I think that I appreciate it. I think the idea is that if the state government was kind of getting out of the way, and instead people were seeing a lot more of the money that they pay in taxes being available now, returning back to them, then I have no doubt 100% that the organization we already have right now, like Lana, remember there was the one guy that came up from Sussex County that I believe, yes, he was delivering food to public schools for like a school breakfast, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
They're already delivering that. So and it's a private organization, right? It's a private group. So a lot of these groups already exist. And if they had just had more money available to them, I really believe that. And not just the people working for those organizations, but people who donate to those organizations, they would have more money available to them. Imagine how many more services they could provide. I mean, you'd have, we already have this in New Jersey as it is. Imagine how much more of this they could provide if it wasn't provided by the state government, and with a lot better results, I might add too, because then people would be able to choose to give to charities that are effective, that have proven to be, not committing the fraud or of any type, and those are the ones that I'm sure would do a better job providing services than what is being currently done.
Before we respond to that last person, I just want to say that a lot of people also don't realize how much the government actually gets in the way of people being charitable. There are people who have been cited and have had to go to court and this and that, and have this big dramatic thing because they were, quote unquote, handing out food without a license. So they weren't technically restaurants, but they were handing out homemade food to homeless people, out of their cars or whatever. And that's illegal because you're technically not a restaurant. You're not licensed. You're not being watched by any sort of food regulation, all this stuff. And so you can get cited. And there's so many examples of that. Even when it comes to like animals, I'm going through the same thing. I'm going through this exact thing right now, as you know, Vic, that you can't just house homeless animals in your home, right? Because you're technically not an animal shelter. And so government not only wants to be the one to be your savior, they also prevent just normal individuals from helping each other. They actually get in the way of that. And when you mentioned the Scrooge thing, I actually remember growing up and being in a car full of my family members, and the firefighters, had their boots out, asking for money in the road. They still do that. And I forget who it was in the car, but they were like, our taxes pay for firefighters. Why am I giving them more money? A lot of people don't realize that private first responder companies do exist. In fact, I worked for a private EMS company when I was in Texas, when I was in Houston. It was a private EMS company. So they weren't getting public funding. They weren't even connected to like the 911 calls that come in. They would get the overflow of 911 calls. So if the county or the town got an overflow of 911 calls, that overflow would then go to this private EMS company, and we would get those calls. But we also had contracts with health insurance companies and hospitals to transport people that were very vulnerable or at risk during transport. And so my point is that these things already exist. So the idea that your local government isn't going to be providing response like that, or helping the homeless, or helping children or whatever, it already exists. It's not even theory, it already exists, right? It is possible. So Lewis says, the only problem with your idea, let me put it on stage here, the only problem with your idea of having religious charities fund education is that the students will become indoctrinated by religious doctrine, not science or reality. We would turn to ridiculous abstinent programs. We would have religion being taught as a fact. So I actually agree with you. I agree with you to a certain degree. Like religious organizations wouldn't be the only option. So what Vic was and I was saying, we're saying, is that you would have options. So if you want to send your kid to a Catholic school, fine. If you want your Catholic values to be instilled in your child, fine. I was homeschooled with my brother, and my parents are Christian, Catholic specifically, but we weren't necessarily raised with a curriculum that taught abstinence or even creation as opposed to evolution, right? So it doesn't necessarily, if public education didn't exist, doesn't necessarily mean that void would be filled automatically with religious institutions and religious curriculums.
Right. No, yeah, thank you, Lana. Yeah, I definitely agree. And we already have private schools right now that don't teach anything that's religious. I mean, they're private, but they're not necessarily. I mean, they're not religious. They're not parochial. So, I mean, and of course, we do have Catholic schools, as you mentioned, parochial schools, and the idea is that people should have more choices. Certainly, when it comes to the state of New Jersey, we do have plenty of public schools. But I do think that as far as education goes, parents should have more choices. And yes, when it comes to religious schools, there you do have choices. But if they didn't send their kids to religious schools, I'm sure those same parents, when it comes to abstinence, would be telling their kids that they should be practicing abstinence. Like, I don't think that just because the parents are sending their kids to particular schools, it doesn't mean that the parents themselves have no influence when it comes to those particular topics. And if somebody's raised that way by their parents, that's how they're raised. I mean, this is what's already taking place today. There's nothing that stopping parents from sending their kids to parochial schools, but there are plenty of private schools when they don't teach religion, and they're special ed schools that don't deal with religion that are private. So it's all about parents having more options, and that is what I support. And like I said, even if there were no religious schools, period, that would still not have stopped parents from teaching their kids according to their values, whatever else they would be learning in schools.
Right, and you also have to consider that even in public education, you can I don't want to use the word abstain, but you can have your child not be present for certain teaching, like during sex education. You can have your child be pulled out during that class, or even when they're teaching evolution and science, or even different things that people complain about, or super religious people. They can opt out. They can have their child opt out of those classes through consent anyway. So even with public education, you can still have a child that doesn't understand the difference between creation and evolution, doesn't understand that there are other ways to prevent pregnancy other than abstinence, because you can still opt out of those classes anyway. So
Right. No, yeah, 100% I agree. And and actually, when I did go to public school, guess what, Lana? My teacher was telling us, this is in a public school, that abstinence was the key. You should abstain in a sex ed class in a public school. So, so I mean, the idea that that abstinence would, first of all, the schools would be taken over by religious schools, and then abstinence would be taught. Well, I went to a public school, and that's what the teacher was telling us, that abstinence is the key. And I think that one of the other line was that the best sex is no sex. So that's what we had in the public. So yeah, I mean that's like, okay, all right. I mean, that's what a teacher was saying. So listen, so it does depend. So obviously, and then of course, before that, I was in a different public school, middle school, and I was being told something totally different by a sex ed teacher. We were, well, not to go into like too many specifics, but I do remember it very well, and I did understand back then that what you're being taught, it does depend on the school district, when it comes to public schools. So that's yeah. So go ahead.
And honestly, I think, of course, like I said, I was homeschooled, so maybe I don't have a whole lot of knowledge of how it was when I was in school age and how it is now. But my understanding is that I actually think the sex education doesn't actually teach much other than how to prevent pregnancy and STDs and things like that, which is more of a health class than it is sex ed, because there are publicly educated people that are grown now, right? Like Gen Z, they're grown, and they don't understand their own anatomy. They don't understand basic human anatomy, and these are things that are claimed to have been taught in public school. And so I think even with sex education, they're not actually teaching you anything, right? But that's true of much of the curriculum.
Right. Oh, well, I mean that. Yeah, that whole subject is, I mean, I think the country. I mean, when you talk to, I guess, public school teachers, they would say that, at one age they think it's too early, but then if they try at some other age, it's too late. So it's, I mean, that's like the, I guess, trying to find that middle ground. But yeah, because well, one positive thing I can say, however, is that there certainly have been a reduction of teenage pregnancies compared to, like, let's say, back, over 30 years ago. That seemed to be a lot more common. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
definitely
Abstinence only education is like just has been proven over and over again to not be effective. But I'm just saying that, like, okay, so we don't teach abstinence anymore, but then people don't even know their own anatomy. You know what I mean?
sure.
So
Yeah, I don't think that that's stopping people from doing, obviously, that's, I think it can certainly, for some people, can have the opposite effect, right? The forbidden fruit is sweet, so that the more the more maybe they hear the message, don't do it, that some of them might have kind of it may have a reverse effect where they might want to do it because they're being told not to do it. So it's, I can also definitely see that with some people, for sure, because it's
yeah,
like,
but there's just a problem with the curriculum in general. Like we were talking about earlier, we threw all this money at education, and there are children who can't read at appropriate levels. The other day, and this is not just an isolated incident with me, with one person who probably didn't know how to make change, but this is a problem with the younger generations in general, to the point where I've seen signs in front of grocery stores and stuff like that say, please either give exact change or don't give extra change once they've inputted it into the cash register. And I was at the store. I don't remember what the amount was, but I had given her $30. And then and she inputted it into the machine to give me change. And then I had handed her the change so that I could get a whole bill back instead of a bunch of change. And she just looked at it extremely confused. And she was like, well, I can't do it now because I've already inputted into the machine. So, and like I said, it's not an isolated incident. This is like a problem with the younger generations. They can't give change. They can't do basic math. So, like, is public education really resulting in anything positive right now? I don't think so. But ultimately, what it comes down to with this conversation is people should have choices. And right now they don't. Luckily, homeschooling is pretty easy. There's not a lot of regulation in New Jersey, although that's under threat right now with a couple of bills that they're trying to pass with homeschooling. You can't cross municipal lines, despite what that lady was trying to tell you last night. And the lottery system with schools is it's an abject failure, in my opinion. And something that a lot of people don't know, and I learned more about this when I was running for school board, is something called micro schools, which you could categorize as homeschooling, but it's basically between 20 and 30 families, maybe even smaller, maybe 10 to 15 families that come together and hire either a teacher, depending on the age of the children, or multiple teachers to teach subjects, and together as a community of families, decide what the curriculum is going to be. And that, to me, sounds much more effective than a state education board deciding a curriculum for the entire state, millions of people, hundreds of thousands of children. I think we need to decentralize, which is not surprising to hear from Libertarian, right? So.
right. No, absolutely. I think that I just think that, totally agree with you, Lana. Parents should have options, and they should be able to choose what type of schools they want to send their kids to. I mean, I think that's it. I mean, it's not about like anything taking anything over, really. Just parents having options. Nobody's going to take anything over when parents can choose what to where to send their kids to. So which schools they want to send their kids to. So yeah, parents, and they are having some options, obviously, today. I mean, they can decide what type of a school is best for them. And it's just about having freedom to choose the best schools for that parents can choose. Like, we're certainly not trying to people would be aghast at the idea of restricting like food choices, right? Well, in terms of like, what types of cheese one wants to buy, right? What types of, the different types. I was like, well, just have 2 or 3. Like, why? Well, that's
they're trying to do that as well with products. So
yeah, but it should be, because life should be about choices. It's not, life should be about the state, limiting your choices and having you as few choices as possible. I mean, that's what communism is all about. That's what the government decides that, well, you should only be having, this is how much the government, they won't be producing 2 or 3 types of cheese and 2 or 3, it's like all these kinds of bread, and that's it. We're not going to allow anything else. Like, why? Like, well, because we said so. Like, because we know what's best for you. So, because we know what's best for millions of people. And and there, like I said, there are people in the United States who feel the same way. So they just instead of food, they just want to limit to other areas of one's life. That's all.
yes, Lou, choices are always better. All right, so moving on to something else that might be of interest to people, something more of a, not in New Jersey, it's happening in Texas. And I don't think, because I'm on my phone today, because for some reason my internet doesn't work on my computer, I don't think I can actually put it up on screen, but hopefully you guys can still hear me when I exit out of here. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So
I can't hear you, and I don't see anything, but kind of guess I can wait. Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll continue the. Let me just give me 1 second. Oh, okay.
I disappeared for a second.
Oh, that's fine. No, I know.
Did you hear?
No, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you didn't hear anything? Okay.
No. It was just I know you disappeared, and yeah, that was it.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, anyways, to sum it up, Ken Paxton is launching an investigation into Discord because he claims that the platform is allowing addiction and dangerous conversations to happen. So he's launching an investigation and will probably lead to at least an attempt to ban the platform or limit what you can say on the platform. And I wanted to know what you thought about that, Vic.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm totally against it. Of course, that would be no different if one wanted to ban Facebook, do the same thing to Facebook or X or anything else. Now, of course, the government, the state of Texas, state government of the state of Texas should not be doing that. The federal government should be doing that. People should be free to say and whatever they want. I mean, certainly the federal government shouldn't be restricting one's freedom of speech. That's for sure. Or the state government. I mean, people have a right to say whatever they want, and and the state government should be trying to restrict it just because of somebody wrote or something on social media.
So we'll get to your question, Louis, in just a second. I think we have 2 Lou's watching today, which is funny. But I found it on my computer. That way I don't disappear again. But he is quoted to say, "I'm standing shoulder to shoulder with the Trump administration to root out and defeat nihilistic, violent extremists in its all forms. Discord has chosen to allow extremist content, sexual exploitation, and addiction to flourish on its platform. It has a legal obligation to prevent minors from being exposed to these evils. but instead his actions have contributed to the growing wave of nihilistic violence across our nation. And I agree with you that the government doesn't have, shouldn't be getting involved in what platforms or what conversations are being allowed on a platform. And it's basically just going to amount to an infringement of freedom of speech. But this is not the first time Texas has done that. I think Texas is the state that has banned completely adult videos and pictures. I think it's Texas. So, but Discord does not have a legal obligation to prevent minors from being exposed to things. Actually, the legal obligation of that is the parents. Parents have the obligation to prevent their children from being exposed to things that their brains are not prepared to be exposed to, not the government. And, especially since we've been talking about education and choice for families, once you allow your government into your home and making decisions for your children, and that includes curriculum and also includes what they have access to on the internet, you might as well just hand your children over to the state completely,
No, I agree. Yeah, no, this is it's very dangerous for the government to decide, well, because children could have access to something, then it should be banned. Like, no, you can't. Yeah, because that would be like the state government coming in saying, well, we're just going to ban a bunch of websites only because children can have access to them. Well, parents have the ability to restrict the children's access to those websites. It's up to the parents to make those decisions. The idea that these websites should be blocked. What in the because can you imagine one of those websites like think of any type of websites that are adult related that the state government is going to say, well, we're just going to ban it in our state. They don't have that power, and it restricts the free speech rights of the American people. Parents are fully capable of blocking websites from the internet that they don't think their kids should have access to. So parental control. I mean, we have that with certainly with the internet. So and the state government should be involved restricting something just because children might have access to it. That's what the parents are for.
Yeah, and the argument is that children will figure out how to do it, and a lot of parents are unaware of what you can access on the internet. I remember when the internet kind of first became a household thing. My family had one computer and it was in the living room, and my parents are boomers, and I don't think they understood what you can access on the internet even then, and probably didn't put enough protections that they probably could have if they had known. So that does happen. There are parents that either don't care or don't understand, and there are kids that are smart and will figure out how to go behind blockers and find out passwords and this and that. But ultimately, it is the parent's responsibility. If your kid is so defiant that they're just going to do it anyway, then take the computer out of the house. Don't give them an iPhone. Like you find a way to not let them have access to these things. That's your job.
Right.
But let's because we're running out of time here, but it's okay if we go a little over. Let's answer this question here. What would you do to divest or defund New Jersey from Israel and the military-industrial surveillance state that is infringing on our First Amendment rights?
That's an excellent question. Yeah, thank you for that. So when it comes to the state government of New Jersey, first of all, I don't support funding anything that's unconstitutional coming from the federal government. That means that I would not, certainly when it mentioned the state of Israel. So yes, so when it comes to the Israeli government, first of all, leaving the kind of Israeli government out of it for a second, but there is, I know, proposal in the state legislature, and it could become law because we could become one of the close to 40 states that have this on the books, where you have this organization's definition of anti-Semitism. I think it starts with the Holocaust. I'm trying to remember the other part. But if that definition of anti-Semitism becomes law, then this would actually criminalize a specific type of criticism of the Israeli government. So I want to make sure that I support this legislation not becoming law and joining close to 40 states where it is law. The other part is that I definitely want to make sure that anyone who signs a contract with the state government would not be signing a sort of a promise not to boycott Israeli goods. I think that limits that's a violation of the First Amendment of free speech of anyone who's working for the state government. People should be free to boycott any goods they want, and they should have the freedom to disagree with any government they want. And on top of that, I do believe when it comes to the Israeli government, people should be free to protest the Israeli government anywhere they want in the state of New Jersey. They should be free to criticize the state government, the local government, the federal government, and any other government outside of the state of New Jersey. So that is, I support that 100%. The fund from New Jersey, from Israel, I don't think that any of our tax dollars should be used. My opinion is to fund foreign governments. Now, when it comes to the federal tax dollars, I don't, I'm not sure what I can do about that. But so there's more here. Okay, but when it comes to but I just want to make it clear that when it comes to the state government, that the state government, the policies on a state level and any kind of free speech restrictions would not be used in the state of New Jersey. But Lana, if you'd like to add, if the state government is doing any kind of investments in the Israeli government into Israel, I think those investments should disappear for sure. Yes.
Yes, and don't worry, we'll get to everyone's comment or question, even if we're here for 2 hours. That's fine. Something else that people are concerned about when it comes to state surveillance is Palantir, for one, and how ICE is using these data mining companies to surveil us and to, quote unquote, catch illegal immigrants. Vic and I actually attended a protest against Palantir and also ICE. It was kind of a dual protest. I believe that was was that 4 days ago already? No, that was last Tuesday.
Yeah, that was like 10 days ago.
Yeah, the days are kind of blending in for me. And one thing that we can do to stop, either on a state level or a federal level, sending tax dollars over to other governments, particularly Israel, that is, doing what they're doing to the Palestinians, is stop voting people in that are paid by them. Right. Last year, I ran against Kane in District 7, and he's on their payroll, and he will do anything that they ask him to. Jack is also on their payroll. I believe Cheryl is also. Like, you have to stop voting people in that are on the payroll of foreign governments. And it really is that simple. Like, if you started voting in people that are truly here to help New Jerseyans and not send tax dollars overseas and to fund proxy wars and to fund genocides and all these other things, it wouldn't happen. Right, but we keep voting in incredibly corrupt politicians who are on the payroll of these people. So
right, absolutely, and I think it's very dangerous, Lana. I totally agree. On a state level, to have any type of legislation to become law that then restricts the ability of people to disagree with the policies of a foreign policies of a foreign government, and where that becomes that becomes criminalized. Free speech should not be criminalized. One should be able to criticize another government. And I totally agree. Yeah, obviously, like I said before, our tax dollars should not be spent. I mean, on a federal level, I think we should have a non-interventionist foreign policy, and no tax dollars should be used to send weapons to other countries, period. And we should just withdraw troops from over 160 countries, 70 countries immediately, as far as I'm concerned. Eliminate all taxpayer-funded weapon sales to other governments, period, 100% right away. But I'm not running for a federal office, but that is 100% what I do support, and absolutely, and I support peace in Gaza, which is why I was endorsed by CARE last year, because I support immediate stop to all weapon sales by the U.S. government and a ceasefire as well. So. Let's see. What's
so the next one was about when we were talking about Discord. That sounds to me like the only reason Discord is part of this discussion is because of Charlie Kirk's assassination, the fact that he had used it to drop references to his plan prior to and during the assassination. Yes. So one, politicians use tragedies like this, especially high profile, media attention incidents like this, to sneak in regulation and to take power. He probably doesn't actually care what people talk about on Discord. He's not concerned about the children, right? He just wants to be able to ban things, and he wants to convince people that this is for their safety and for the safety of the children. Whenever somebody brings up the children, or the safety of women, or any vulnerable population as a way to grab power, they don't actually care about those populations, right? The same thing with I forget what the actual name is, but I was just talking about this with Dustin, who's running in District 8. Those surveillance cameras that they're starting to put up on every street corner, that is basically just surveilling everyone at all times, 24/7. And the way that they're convincing people is that this is for your safety. This is how we're going to catch criminals. If someone commits a crime, someone attacks someone, we can catch them faster with this surveillance program, with this camera. But what it's actually doing is creating a giant network of state surveillance. But that's how they do everything. They did it after 9/11. They don't actually care about you or about vulnerable populations or about your safety. They just want power. And that's how they're going to get it. Yeah, and as far as LeBron, as far as sending flyers so you can post them up, absolutely. Thank you so much for volunteering to do that. If you message either Vic or I can send you stuff in the mail, or if you tell me what city you're in, we might be in that area next week, and we can meet up and I can give you some stuff to hand out. So that would be really helpful.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
So we went over a little bit of an hour, unless you have anything to add to anything we've talked about, Vic.
No, I think this is covered all the areas. Yeah, I did mention the First Amendment. Yeah, I think that's highly important. I think the First Amendment, the right to free speech, is extremely important, because we do see what is happening. Right, the free speech is being under attack, both on the federal level and on the state level as well. So on a state level, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to defend the rights of anyone who wants to exercise their free speech right, and make sure that right to free speech is not restricted in any way, because there's definitely a desire for number of people to prevent other people from speaking. And you can see the attacks being taking place, whether it's it's not done through the power of legislation. Sometimes you have social media being kind of taken over by certain individuals who then they impose their ways on that particular social media. And you have certain people on the governmental level announcing it loud and clear. That's exactly what they want to do. That they're not going to just stop with one social media. They're going to extend their control to others, and they have absolutely no qualms about doing that, because they know that they're going to continue receiving the tax dollars and our tax dollars, and that's going to continue. And for as long as that's going to continue, they're going to try to restrict the ability of the people of, well, not just the United States and other people, to express themselves. So this is something that is dangerous on a state level. I will support protecting the rights, the First Amendment rights of all people of New Jersey, regardless what opinions they may hold, because I completely understand that violating the opinions of people because they hold one opinion could easily be extended to everyone else. And the people who are cheering this, they may come to regret it, as their First Amendment rights are restricted. They may not be aware of it right now. They may not be thinking in those terms. Once they allow the free speech rights of people they disagree with be restricted, that opens up a whole Pandora's box of later on their own rights to free speech being restricted as well. So I think it's important to protect everyone's right to free speech, and any types of legislation that is right now in the legislature that restricts it, I will be opposing it 100%. and I will be trying to do what I can in my power to see to it that this types of legislation does not become law. I'll definitely will be vocal about it for sure. So that's what I wanted to end with, and certainly, I do say every podcast. If you'd like to check my website, it's vic4liberty.com, and that's vic4liberty.com. Running for governor. Again, Lana Leguía, it's lanaleguia.com. It's at the bottom of the screen. And also check out Dustin Maggard's website at dustinforliberty.com as well at the bottom of the screen. If you're looking to volunteer or you'd like to donate, please visit our websites and so we can continue taking our message to the people of New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, Vic. And I also just want to say, as far as volunteering, there are other opportunities to volunteer outside of helping the campaigns, which of course the campaigns need help, especially Vic. He's running a statewide campaign and he can't be everywhere all at once. So we definitely need people on the ground doing stuff and hosting events and tabling things. And, we're less than a month away, so we really need all the help we can get. But we also have committees in the party that do things that directly help combat some of these either local ordinances or state laws. And a lot of people don't know this, but you can write a bill and then find a state representative to sponsor it, right? We don't have to wait for someone to get in office to actually fight against these things. You can show up to your local council meetings. You can show up to the state assembly and speak out against. I'm always in Trenton. I'm always at these local meetings, not literally, but, arguing with them or saying why this is unconstitutional, why this shouldn't exist, etc. And if enough people do that, things will change. But right now, everyone is either complacent or thinks that they don't have the power that they actually do. So, if you want to volunteer for Vic's campaign, absolutely do it. We need help, but also you can volunteer for different committees within the party to continue that work even after the election. Just contact one of us or join the party, and someone will get in contact with you. So, anyways, we'll end it there. Thank you so much, everyone.
Last thing I want to mention before I go. Yeah,
go ahead.
So like I mentioned before, really, no, thank you, Lana. And last thing, yes, I just wanted to add to what you said, Lana, and that's great. Yes, if you'd like to work on, for example, local governments that have zoning laws, I mean, those zoning laws, it's possible to change them on a local level. So if that's something that you're interested in, like what Lana said, not just on a state level, but also on a local level, that's also something that you can definitely work on if you'd like to have, more affordable housing in your local community, right? Wouldn't it be nice to have tiny homes? I mean, I think that would be great. People could live in tiny homes. So yeah, absolutely. So whether it's a state or local level, definitely would encourage you to get involved.
So LeBron, so you're in Trenton. We're actually going to be in Trenton on Saturday, so in 2 days. Mm-hmm. So we can meet you, but I can also send you things in the mail. That's totally fine. Just give me your email or address, send me a message or send Vic a message, and we'll do whatever's convenient for you. Okay. All right. So anything else, Vic?
No, that's, I think we're good as far as time goes. So yeah.
Okay. So we are going to go live again tomorrow at 6:30 if you're available, Vic. So if you guys want to watch tomorrow, if you come up with any questions between now and then, feel free to leave them. But until tomorrow, have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for your questions.